Good evening, everybody. Can we please get seated? Thank you. Everyone can find a seat, please. Especially you, Yoni. First, I want to welcome you all. Thank you for coming. It'll be a very special presentation tonight. I want to thank the Ramban Shul for allowing us to be here tonight. And especially there are two sponsors for this evening. That's the Kasdan family and the Susemski family. And I want to thank Uwe Greg, which I'll introduce in a second, and of course Bina, my wife. Why we chose this concept, right before Pesach, as a presentation for inspiration. The whole Jewish nation we were born. We became converts. The whole nation converted at Mount Sinai through the process of leaving Egypt, splitting the sea, going through the waters. We really were born again, born anew, reborn like children. So before I introduce Ahuva, I just wanted to speak for a minute and a half just to get across an idea. What is so special about mankind? Somebody who makes a decision to choose to be Jewish, to involve themselves with the Jewish nation. So there's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avot that Rav Noach Weinberg would quote. It speaks about free will, the ability to choose, right? Free will, making a choice, a decision. And not a decision whether I want chocolate ice cream, vanilla ice cream. That's kind of meaningless. But choosing something meaningful, life itself. So the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, towards the end of the third chapter, this is a continuation of Rabbi Akiva. He says, Hu HaYomer used to say, Chaviv Adam Shenivra B'Tselem. How beloved is man, he was created in the image of God. Chiba Yis Teram Noda'at Lo Shenivra B'Tselem. It was a special gesture of love that God made known to him that he was created in the image of God. As it says in the Torah, Ki B'Tselem Elokim Aso Et Adam. In the image of God, he created man. So the Rosh Yeshiva explains, Rav Noach Weinberg explained, what is it? What do you mean that Tselem Elokim? What does it mean, the image of God? The image of God, the ability to choose, free will, right? Because God has no goof, has no body. It's something beyond that. It's something supernal, supernatural. Something very lofty, and that's free will. But can it really get any better than just having free will? So you told a short story to get the point across. What's better than free will? That's the greatest gift we have. So there's one thing just a little bit better than that. And that, as Rabbi Akiva said, it's the knowledge that we have it. So the story goes like this, the way he expressed the story. Imagine for yourself a man, a homeless person, down and out, and he has no money, he has no food, no shelter. So he goes from dumpster to dumpster, begging, looking for scraps. You decide, maybe you and a friend partner, we're going to put $10 million in the bottom of his duffel bag, the one he carries around with him, the one he uses as a pillow. Have you changed his life? Of course not. But what if you told him? All of a sudden, once he has the knowledge, he's able to use it and spend it, sleep in a hotel, get a shower every day, a hot meal, maybe twice a day. His life has changed. So it's that extra special gesture that God revealed to us. And of course, that's through the Torah itself. So the idea is about choices. And the choices that we make are rather very important as we mentioned. It's not about choosing something like ice cream. So it says in the Torah, Ha'idoti bechem hayom et hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz. Right? I bring witness against you today, the heavens and the earth. Ha'chayim v'ha'maves, life and death. Natati lefanecha, That's what I placed before you. The bracha and the klala, the curse, the blessing and the curse. The only time in the whole Torah that tells us what to choose is choose life. Laman tichye ata zerecha, so that you and your children will have a long life. Making a choice like this, when you stand in front of a Beis Din and the judges look at you and they ask you, are you crazy? Everyone wants to kill the Jews. I mean, they're, persecuted. And you stand, try to imagine, whatever life you had, you're making a decision to join a persecuted people. But you've done your own investigation. You've made a decision. It's called choosing life. Something very meaningful. So with that short introduction about just a little bit of Torah, why we chose to have this presentation right before Pesach. Also, so this is the book that Yehuda Gray has recently written and is for sale, and she'll mention about a few of the other books. Just one more idea that I wanted to get across. It's my own personal message. I'm not speaking tonight, they are. But I just wanted to leave this one message before Pesach. Alu chamushim. Only, right, Chazal tell us when the Jews went up out of Egypt, 20%, 1/5 left. Why? What happened to the other 4/5? They died. They died there. They didn't choose life. We have an opportunity, not just this Pesach, not just twice a day when we say Shema, but constantly, every day, to choose life. Anyway, so as I mentioned, the Jewish people, as a nation, converted, and without any more words from myself, I want to introduce Yehuda Gray, who has a fascinating story, and I'm sure we'll all be uplifted and inspired through her words. Yehuda.
Good evening. It's always a pleasure for me to travel the world and share my story, and Baruch Hashem, this evening I didn't have to travel so far. I have been privileged to live here in Eretz Isreel. This coming Pesach, it'll be 22 years. It is incredible. And I've lived in my community, Bayit Vagan, for those 22 years. What I'm going to do with you this evening is to share a vignette of short stories and explain to you how I, as an ordained minister and the entrepreneur of a travel agency specializing in group movements to Israel, I came to Israel the first time and fell in love with the country. I was with a group of Christians, and by the way, just in case some of you don't know that, I was an ordained minister. And we were leaving Tel Aviv, coming into that first curve into Jerusalem. And my heart started pulsating like it was coming out of my chest. And I said, oh my God, I'm at home. When I said that, I really meant it. I had worked for Continental Airlines for many, many years and had been all over the world. But Israel was the first time and the first place I traveled that my neshama felt rooted and knitted to this land. Today I know it was a soul resonance when I came around that first curve into Jerusalem. As we are taught when we study about Pesach, that Pesach is the redemption of the Jewish people and it's the redemption of every Jewish neshama. And not only that, our rabbis of blessed memory say that every Jewish neshama was present at Har Sinai, past, present, and future, and the mazel of a convert. Well, I feel like my neshama was there, and in retrospect, I realize now, many, many years later, that I was headed down this path my entire life. Back to that first curve coming from Tel Aviv into Yerushalayim, my heart's pulsating like it's coming out of my chest. Isaiah 40 has always been one of my favorite chapters in the Torah and the prophets. And it says in Isaiah 40 this, it says, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, lift up your voice, lift it up with strength, say unto the cities of Judah, behold your God. Behold, Hashem will come with a strong arm. His reward is with him. He shall gather his sheep unto himself and lead his flock like a shepherd. After I quoted those psukim, those verses, I started singing to the top of my lungs. Don't worry, Rabbi, I'm not going to sing tonight. And all of the other Christians on the bus were looking at me like I was losing my mind. But what I find interesting about this story is I knew I wanted to live here. But at that time, I did not know that I was converting to Judaism. So, enjoyed that visit, saw some of the most incredible sights I've ever seen in my life. And I was living in Los Angeles, California at that time. I flew back to LA. And what's interesting is after that first visit, I came back to Isreel 14 times in 4 years. Everyone that knew me thought I was literally losing my mind, but it was like a magnet, and I simply could not stay away. Back to Los Angeles, flew back to Israel every time I had a chance. I was working with Continental Airlines, had lots of vacation. I've been with them for 23 years, and so whenever I had a group coming, I got on the plane and came with the group. Now I need to give you the catalyst for making my decision to move to Isreel. It happened January 17th, 1994. That day will always be forever embedded in my mind, and if we have any Californians in this room, you know what I'm referring to. It was the Northridge earthquake, and I was one of these people that had a practice of getting up every morning, davening from my Hebrew sitter, an ordained minister, but I taught my own self the Hebrew. And it had Hebrew on one side, English on the other side. I didn't even know the format of our prayers at that time. But I also felt that it wasn't proper for me to go into prayer. I knew nothing about Modeh at that time. But I felt it wasn't proper for me to go into prayer and talk to God without washing my hands. This particular morning, I woke up at 4:30, and I said it's a bit early because I would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. So at 4:32 a.m., my bed started shaking, and I said, perhaps it's just a dream and you're on an airplane and it's bad turbulence. However, about 3 minutes later, after I was shaken violently from the bed to the floor, I said, get up, girl. It's not turbulence, it's an earthquake. I got up, I started running. I fell down at the stairwell that led to the loft in my condominium. And I fell down and I looked up at the ceiling, and there were these plants dangling back and forth from the ceiling. And it looked like they were going to come tumbling down on my head. My grandmother, may she rest in peace, taught all of her children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, the Psalms. I learned them when I was 4 years old. So whenever any difficulty arises in my life, it's like the appropriate Tehillim just kind of raises up in my neshama. This particular morning, Psalms 121, I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from which cometh my help. All of my help cometh from Hashem. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. Hashem is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. He will preserve you from evil. He'll preserve your soul. He'll preserve you going out and coming in from this time forth, even forevermore. By the time I got to the last pasuk of that particular Tehillim, I finally regained my equilibrium, got up, ran to the front door there, and finally got the door open. It was still, the aftershocks of this earthquake were just as potent and violent as the original impact. I ran down the stairs, and I saw one of my neighbors screaming, and I threw my arms around her, started praying for her. She and I went and sat by the jacuzzi while my other neighbors were sitting. And as I sat there this particular morning, I said to myself this: you have been saying you want to live to Israel, move to Israel. And I made that decision this particular morning. And as I said, the aftershocks were just as potent as the original impact. And as I've lectured worldwide, people sometimes introduce me and they say Ahuva's story is one of physical earthquakes as well as spiritual earthquakes. That's a good way of putting it. I was there with all of my other neighbors, and about 2 hours later, I finally got the courage to go back upstairs to my condominium. Now, I was very steeped in my Gashmias, and I had lots of it. And when I opened the door to my condominium, I literally could not believe my eyes. Those plants that were dangling from the ceiling were all down on the floor. My beige carpet. And all the other large plants and pottery were all upside down. And ladies, I want you to know, when I went in the kitchen and saw all of my crystal and china broken that I had purchased in London, I almost plaques. And then my attention shifted from my material belongings, because they were all in shambles, to my sister who lives in Beverly Hills. And I said, Hashem, I hope my sister's okay. I picked up the phone lines. Of course, the phone lines were down. And then all of a sudden, I just ran into the bedroom. And Baruch Hashem, I had on a nice flannel nightgown, all covered up, because everybody was down there by the jacuzzi in their pajamas or whatever. I ran and found a right shoe and a left shoe. I don't even know if they were matching, skirt and a blouse. Ran in the bathroom, found a toothbrush, toothpaste, threw it in my purse, grabbed my Bible, locked the door. And as I was running downstairs to the garage, I said, Hashem, I hope my Mercedes-Benz is not smashed, because the garage was under the condominium complex. Got the door open to the garage. My car was fine. Get in the car, and the ground is shaking crazy violently. Normally, I would take the freeway to get to my sister's, but I said, to get there safe, take Sepulveda, go straight over to Beverly Hills. I'm driving for, I don't know how long it took me to get there, because normally it was like a 20-minute ride, but this particular day, nothing was usual. Get to my sister's in Beverly Hills maybe about an hour and a half later, and I get to her apartment, and everything's fine. The only thing that had happened to her is I think a tree had fallen on her Cherokee Jeep, and our parents had been trying to get through to us for hours, because I'm assuming that they had heard about this earthquake on the news or something of that nature. And finally, I don't know after how many hours, the telephone lines were finally back up. My mother got through to my sister, and she said, put Dolores on the phone, I know she's moving. And I could hear my dad in the background saying, is Dolores moving back home to Chicago? And when I came to the phone, I said, Mom, tell Dad I'm not moving back to Chicago, I'm moving to Israel. Now, my mother normally is a very calm person, and she said to me this, and I know maybe perhaps some of you in the room have heard this. She said, Dolores, you used to be one of the most obedient children I had. I'm going to put your father on the phone, and perhaps he can talk some sense into you. My dad came to the phone, and he said this. He said, Dolores, you're just a bit shaken up by the earthquake. Calm down, we'll call you back in 2 days. My parents called me back in 2 days. And when they saw they could not talk me out of this decision, they simply said this. My dad said this. He said, Dolores, where are you going to live? How are you going to support yourself? And he says, you don't know the language. I said, Dad, those are great questions. Everyone that knows me have always said I'm a woman of Amunah B'Taka B'Hashem, faith and trust in God. I said, I have no idea where I'm going to live, no idea how I'm going to support myself. And I said, I'll learn the language. In my opinion, if anyone decides to make Aliyah, don't do it the way I did it. Hashem was really watching out for me. And when I came to Isreel, I had been privileged to meet a few religious Jews before I moved here. And I stayed in Old Katamon with Rabbi Mordechai Goldberg and his family. And then I was invited to Bayit Vagan, and another dear friend of mine, Yosef HaKohen, whom I had met through a project I was working on with Ruth Brody Sharon. He lived in Bayit Vagan. So I was invited to Bayit Vagan for my first Shabbos. And when I went to Bayit Vagan for my first Shabbos, and we were walking down the streets in Bayit Vagan after the Friday night meal, it simply felt at home. I had been registered on Ben Yehuda at this apartment listing. They had not ever had a listing in Bayit Vagan. And that Sunday after that Shabbos, when I went down there, they had an apartment in Bayit Vagan. That was the first apartment I had there. And, you know, it's so interesting because my community, you know, Bayit Vagan is known as a Haredi neighborhood. And as I've lectured worldwide in universities, especially in Oxford University, in Oxford, England, and in Georgetown University in America, when they invited me to speak to the Jewish students, and they would say to me, Ahuva, what is it like for you being African American and living in that Haredi neighborhood? And I say, well, I moved from one black neighborhood to another black neighborhood. I feel perfectly comfortable living in Bayit Vagan. And when I say that, I really mean it. My community has loved and embraced me the entire time I've been there. My rabbi, Rabbi Hyman Satsal, was a Talmud, Rabbi Cutler Satsal, incredible people. I call him and him and his wife my Abba and Ima. And Bhagavan is incredible. That's all I can tell you. Before I wrote my first book, and I need to share with you the challenge I went through with the Best In, and how I came to the realization that I was going to convert. I knew I wanted to live here, but I didn't know I was converting. That family that I mentioned to you that lived in Old Catamount, I had been here for a tour with a Christian group, and then I had another group that was coming, and it was before the high holidays. And all of my Jewish friends had told me how special it was to be in Jerusalem for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And before this second group was coming, I saw on the news that there was a bus bombing. And then I was contacted and the group canceled that was scheduled to come. And I said, well, it's very close to the high holidays. And all of my friends have been telling me how special it is to be here for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So I stayed. I stayed at the Mariah Hotel. They changed the name of all these hotels over and over again. And I went to Rabbi Mordechai Goldberg and his wife for Rosh Hashanah. We were walking down the street after, and I went to Bet Knesset in the car. And we were walking down the street and everyone was saying Shana Tova, Chag Sameach. I didn't even know what it meant. They said it to me. I said it back to them. When I went to the Goldberg's home, Rabbi Mordechai Goldberg had explained to me why we were taking this apple, dipping it in the honey, and he also had to explain to me why this fish head was on the table, and it looked like these two eyes were staring at me the entire night. And finally, after that lovely meal, we're coming up on the holiest day of the entire year, Yom Kippur. And I called his wife, and I asked Abigail, I said, what do I need to do to prepare myself for Yom Kippur? She said, Ahuva, the Jewish people fast, but you're not Jewish and you're not obligated. And I said to her, if the Jewish people fast, I'm going to fast as well. I walked back to Bet Knesset Yakar. I walked in on Kol Nidre. I did not know that Kol Nidre was a nullification of all past and future vows. I sobbed all the way through Kol Nidre. Neither did I know that you do not talk during Kol Nidre, but I certainly know that today. I sobbed all the way through Kol Nidre. And there was this lovely lady sitting next to me. She just kept patting me on the shoulder, passing over the Kleenexes. And I looked at her and I said, I have no idea what's going on with me. She tapped me on the shoulder again. And when I left Bet Knesset Yakar that particular night and walked down the streets in Jerusalem back to my hotel, it was like the peace of the Almighty. I've not ever experienced anything like that in my life. There wasn't a car, kid on a bike, airplane, motorcycle, anything. And I walked back down the street that particular night to the hotel and I said, I know who my God is. There is some pasukim in Isaiah 40 that says this: every valley should be exalted, every hill and mountain should be made low, the crooked places should be made straight and the rough places should be made plain, and the glory of the Lord should be revealed and all flesh shall see it together, for the mouth of Hashem has spoken it. I felt like that's exactly what had happened to me in my life. I had been on this search mission for 48 years, and it all culminated in Kol Nidre, Baruch Hashem. That's when I knew that I was converting to Judaism. After I broke the fast at the family that I was acquainted with, I told Rabbi Mordechai that I was converting to Orthodox Judaism. He didn't seem to be so surprised. The next person I told was my dear friend Yosef HaKohen Safsal. He wasn't surprised. It's so interesting in retrospect. No one that knew me was surprised because people that I were close to realized that I was headed down this path, but I didn't really realize it until I experienced the high holidays in Kol Nidre. And after all of that lovely, lovely experience, of course, I flew back to California. And this is not the kind of information that you tell your parents on the telephone. So I called my parents and told them I was coming home to Chicago. I had something to discuss with them. And when I went to Chicago, we had this lovely meal my mother made, and I said, Mom, I want to discuss this with you and Dad. I'm going to be moving to Eretz Isreel. And my parents just looked at me, and I said, I'm converting to Judaism. And my mother looked at me and she said this. She said, Dolores, I know any decision that you've made about God, you thoroughly investigated. My mother has seen me my entire life stay up all night marking up books and Bibles and reading and studying. That was my whole life. And I always loved reading. I had known since I was bat mitzvah age that I was going to write a book. after I realized I was converting and came here and moved to Beit Dagan and went to the mikvah and moved out of the dorm at Nishmat when Nishmat was still in Beit Dagan, I went to my second apartment in Beit Dagan, and I didn't even have a Dell laptop. I had a legal pad and a pen, and I said, now I know what this story is about. And that's when I first started writing my first book, My Sister's a Jew. And after that book came out, my first book, My Sister's a Jew, then I got incredible invitations to start lecturing all over the world, to such exotic places like Hong Kong, all over Australia, all over Europe, all over America, all over Canada. And people kept asking me, are you going to write another book? And I was exhausted from all that traveling, and I said, leave me alone, I'm not writing any more books. However, there may be some authorists in this room, and if you get enough stories, you'll always write another book. My second book is entitled Gifts of a Stranger. This book is a book about all the incredible Jewish communities that I have been privileged to lecture to worldwide, in incredible people, incredible communities, lovely families. And at that time, I thought I was finished as well, but not necessarily so. My third book is a new revised version. It's called Journey to the Land of My Soul, and it's a new revised version of My Sister the Jew because I own the rights to my own story now, and I self-publish everything. And then after I finished that, I really thought I was completed. However, the job is not done yet because it was before, a year before the holidays, and I started just kind of sitting, I had a computer by now, sitting at the computer and thinking about incredible stories I had heard over Shabbos, and I said, write a book about the Hagim and stories you heard over the Shabbos tables. My fourth book is called In Search of Hidden Treasures, and that's what this book entails, is incredible stories. Some of them are true stories, some of them are stories that people wanted to remain anonymous, but they're all in this book, and I was given permission to write that book. And my fifth book is called Mind Over Matter, and my sister started a business, and it details how to start a business during retirement. And Baruch Hashem, I really thought I was finished then, but my sixth book about prayer was still in my computer since 2007, and I just finished that up. And my graphic artist is in the process of laying it out now, and she'll be completed probably after Pesach. It's always incredible for me to share my journey with people and to explain to you how I came to the realization that God is one. And you know, when I look back over my life, I was headed down this path my entire life, and coming to Jerusalem that first time and experiencing that level of holiness, that's when I knew, I didn't know I had a Jewish neshama, but I certainly knew I wanted to live here. And you know what, I often, when I say, there's a pasuk in Habakkuk 2 and 3 that says this, because that happened, and then it took me like several more years before that vision came to fruition. But Habakkuk 2 and 3 says this, the vision is yet for an appointed time, and in the end it will speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, it will surely come. It will not tarry. And my realization came after that earthquake, and I did end up moving here, and in my humble opinion, it's one of the best decisions I ever made. And we are going to leave some room for questions and answers after we have the next lecturer. And I just wanted to say that I did order books for you all to be autographed, but they did not make it in the mail, so we'll be sitting outside, and if anybody wants to order one of these books, that'll be perfectly fine with me. I want to close with this pasuk and Mishlei, and it says this: trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge God, and he shall direct your path. Behold, in all your ways know him. Thank you so much, and it's always a pleasure for me to share my story.
Our next speaker is my wife, Mina. You know, there's a special mitzvah to love a convert. Anyway, I do love you, honey. It's probably very difficult to follow Hoover, but I think Bina will do just a great job, no question. I just want to speak half a minute about Yibaneh and what we do, and the truth is, the name Yibaneh is based on Chesed. It's also a prayer. We should build the Beis Hamikdash soon, hopefully through Chesed, through our actions. But the secret is, the same letters, Yibaneh, is the letters to spell Bina. So, anyway, one of the things that we're going to do, I should speak about Yibaneh, what we do, real quick. So we decided we wanted to encourage people and help as a conduit to make connections so people can do more chesed. So what we have done, if you visit our website, yibaneh.com, we've organized, we're not recreating the wheel, we're taking the wheel and making it better, making it more accessible. So there's so many organizations that are out there that are doing chesed for so many years, and we're introducing people. And we're doing it as a group, we're sending individuals, we're trying to connect people to do more chesed. So one of the things, Pesach is coming up, and it's a mitzvah, it's been a long standing custom for people to make donations for matzah and wine and other food for the Hagim. So we have a little collection box for matos chitim, and we'll pass it around. Without any further ado, so we're also going to have questions and answers, both to both speakers tonight at the end.
Hello, everybody. Only wonderful friends, I see. So, for those that I don't know, my name is Bina Sujanani Poston. I was born in Jamaica, Caribbean, and I converted to Judaism almost 10 years ago. So, as a Hindu, I can't say that I really understood the tradition very much. I just followed what my family told me to do, and whatever. I didn't make a connection with it. And in my teenage years, it was an adventure towards Christianity, and I had a lot of problems, a lot of questions, and I got in trouble and was thought to be somewhat rebellious for asking the questions. So that was a little bit rough. So I was really looking for myself and looking for my purpose, and I was really struggling. And I made a trip to Budapest, Hungary, and I would have never thought that I would find Isreel in Budapest. I was very heartbroken, disappointed in the church. And I attended an expo, different countries represented, and I stumbled on a booth. I did not look up at the name of the booth, but there were pictures of the Western Wall, of that which relates to Hagim, Shavuot, Sukkot, and I just had a strong emotional reaction. I wept. This was 1995. And I looked up and I saw the word and I said, Israel. What do I have to do with Israel? Tears are a language of the neshama. Hashem uses our tears. Tears cleanse us, but for some people who don't know a whole lot, I didn't know a whole lot about Jews or anything. I mean, by the church it was like they were the spiritual Israel. That's what I understood. So I never really thought about Jews in the Middle East. It's a place you just don't want to go. So in any case, I was really arrested by that encounter. And a couple weeks later, I went to pray at a place called Fisherman's Wharf, overlooking the Danube. I don't know if any of you have been to Budapest, Hungary, but yes, you have been. Okay, Prima, that's great. So I was praying, and it was a February, and there was snow on the steps as I climbed up to Fisherman's Wharf. And clear out of nowhere, I can't say I've really read the pasuk, but coming out of my own heart was this tefillah, Lord, I want to build you a house. And I said, and then I broke again the tears. What is this? I came home to what was my Christian Bible, I had a hunch that David Hamelech said it, and I found it in 2 Shmuel 7. So anyway, parked this for a while, and I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to Israel for a couple of years, went back to the States, and then a little bit later, I was reading about the life of Avraham Avinu, and I was very struck by his emunah. I was really, really struck by it, and that served to get me motivated to come to Israel, because I remembered the encounter I had in 1995. Now this was 1999. So I actually really knew I had to do this, and I came here with 2.5 bags. And as I got out of Ben Gurion Airport in a taxi, I just said, oh my goodness, I feel like I'm home, you know? What is this? So, okay, 2 months later, I meet a couple of rabbis, and they have an understanding of the lost tribes, and they were talking, and one of them asked me, what are your family names? I told them, you know, Matani, Matana, Shoshanani, Sujanani, Shoshan. My name is Bina from birth. My brother's name is Moti. I have a sister named Gita. And I have another sister, her name is not so clear Hebrew. So I looked at their faces, this one particular rabbi, and I said, oh my goodness, this is serious. I couldn't handle it. It was like so much for me to think that I could have Hebrew shorashim, Hebrew roots. So I actually really, really knew in the 2nd month of being here, I was a Jew, though not halakhically a Jew, not bureaucratically a Jew. Yes, a Jewish neshama. I hadn't even processed the whole word Jewish neshama. I didn't know what that was, but whatever it was, I felt that I was a Jew. Then I would read the Tanakh, and I would see, you know, I would gather them from wherever I scattered them, and again, it was all tears. It was like, I'm on the page. That's me. Well, I don't get emotional. Anyway, Zemanish. Okay. So then, what happened next? Let's see. Okay, so I went to check out conversion in 2001. I went to audit classes, and I didn't feel ready. I just didn't feel like it was something I could do. And I kept going in and out of the country every 3 months to stay current with my visa. And a major turn happened in the year 2004. I was volunteering with ACI, and on Yom HaShoah, after the siren, you know, people were sharing about their losses in the Shoah. I had another moment, call it an aha moment, you know, an epiphany, a moment where eternity touches time, whatever. I had a moment that I knew intuitively that if I thought myself to be a Jew, that I had to come home all the way. And the next morning I was at the Beit Din, and I opened a file. So that was a big thing. And meanwhile, I was already trying to keep mild observances, and I met Rivka Ben-Ari, my adopted mother, and Yoni Ben-Ari. They were my family. I met them in ACI after a year of being here, and I approached them, and they were my people and really stood with me, and I really thank you for that.
Love you, Bina.
Thank you. So, anyway, so now I'm in the process of converting. I'm waiting on the bureaucracy to come through. I started to learn already. I was not getting through very well. It was a really painful experience. I was 2 months shy of finishing my course. I did 8 months, but it was hanging in the balance for me to get approved by the Ministry of Interior. And it was just a no-go, and they told me to leave the country for 4 months. Now that was really very hard, because I was very steeped into being here and practicing my observance, and we had the help from the beginning to the end of E-Team organization under Rabbi Seth Barber, who did an amazing job in helping me with the whole process. But at that time in Gaza, there was an expulsion of Jews from their home. And I remember leaving here in Hol Moed Pesach. It was the 19th of Nisan. And I went back to Jamaica, and I was watching CNN, and I could see what was going on in Asa. And I thought, this is a real spiritual experience, because I felt like I understood a pain here. You know that something is yours, but you can't have it. You can't be there. And it came to me as a spiritual moment of understanding. Those 4 months I felt like I didn't know that I would be coming back. But I thought about Ruth in the Tanakh, and I read it several times, and I understand her a bit, because it's like, she says that, your people will be my people, your God will be my God, and she experienced the power of a choice. And I knew it would really happen at some point, but 4 months was a long time. I didn't eat meat. I mean, one of my rabbis, Rabbi Reuben, said, Bina, you're a JIT, a Jew in training. Just do what you have to do, I couldn't do it. Yes, I had salmon, I could have salads, whatever it was. I worked through that, but I remember a very heartbreaking experience when somebody told me I could get kosher grape juice from the store, Charias, and I went there on a Friday morning, grape juice, and I just walked out sobbing. It was really hard. Anyway, so long and short, 4 months passed, and again, with the help of E-Team, they paved my way with the help of God. I came back here, and it was a different tide. The tables turned. From the entrance to the country, as I came through Ben Gurion, they said, oh, you're here, we can see you're in the computer, you're making Aliyah, Mazal Tov. Oh, I said, this is great, So then I get in, and after a couple of months, I went to the Beit Din, and it was a glorious experience. They said you should have never had to have left the country. And they were very nice. They asked me questions to do with tefillah. I did pretty good there. And when I said the Shema, it was like heaven just came right down. It was so overpowering. And it's such an honor, for me, and I feel so humbled to be a Jew. And if I never accomplished anything in my life, just to be a Jew, this is the purpose of life, to connect to who we are. This is Avraham Avinu Lech Lecha, to go to yourself, because when you find yourself, you find Hashem and you find His purpose, and everything has meaning. It's not about the material things or the this or the that, but to connect to the essence of who you are. That is a Jew. It's a full-time job. Just to dedicate your heart and your love and your passion to do mitzvot. It's amazing. And another thing I want to say, this organization we formed, Yiboneh, it's coming from that birthing place of, Lord, I want to build you a house. It hit me a few months ago in Rosh Hashanah. And, my husband chose the name. I've been telling him of this vision in the 6 years that we've been married. And he said, Yiboneh, and it was right up my street. So, Olam Hesed Yiboneh. We build the world with doing kind acts. And so this is why we started this. And all of us are building something, whether we know it or not. We're building something. And we want our work to last. We want to know that what we build stands, and as we're approaching Pesach, it's upon us. Hashem should hear our groanings, to be where I was and to groan, to feel that burden of something, and to really believe that, Hashem said, I made a covenant. He made a covenant, and He will do all this. He'll take us out, He'll rescue us. He will be to us a God, and we, His people. If we would dare to apprehend these realities at a time like this, who's to tell, we could see Mashiach in our lifetime. And I thank you all for coming. It's really a big bracha, and Hashem bless you.
both speakers. I guess now is time for questions and answers, not for me, but for the two kind women who will sit on the panel. You'll be first. Okay?
I grew up in Chicago, so just a personal question. Where did you grow up? We might have gone to the same school.
I grew up in the Lundell Douglas Park area. I went to Herzl and Hess.
No, you're not on the south side.
No, I was not on the south side. All my family lived on the south side.
And I'd like to tell a story. May I tell
You want to come up and use the microphone?
No, I hope everybody can hear me.
Can't hear.
While Bina was going through this process of going out of the country, coming into the country before she converted, I think it was, we had a friend, an American friend, a Jewish woman who came from a well-known family in Chicago, and she called herself the white sheep of the family because her family was connected to the Jewish mafia and political machinations in the Chicago political world. She came here on her own because she felt that she had wanted to be in Israel, even though she just came to Israel. But she had a medical problem also, and it couldn't be treated. And they told her here that she had to live with her problem. To make a long story short, my wife and I were driving to the Galil one day. We were on the Chofesh. And Becky, when Bina mentioned that she had volunteered at the ACI, and Becky gave her a project to go to this woman who hardly ever got out of bed, to make friends with her, that she would have somebody that she could meet, she'd talk to. And when she got to her apartment, she found a letter on the door to Bina. So fortunately it was a time when there were cellular phones. Bina called us up, we were already towards Jericho, Yericho. She said, I don't know what to do. There's a letter on the door written to me, to Bina. What should I do? So Becky, my wife, says to her right away, open it up and read it. Read it to us on the phone. I pull over with the car, I don't know what's going on. Inside there's another letter. The letter is written to Bina. I'm sorry I will never be able to meet you. Thank you for your good intentions. Inside there's a letter from my wife. And Becky says right away, read me the letter. It's a suicide note. Because she couldn't take the pain anymore. And she read the letter. Of course, I turned the car around right away. Driving to Jerusalem and hoping a policeman will stop me because I'm speeding too much, and then we'll tell him the story, and he'll accompany us to Jerusalem. And we got to Jerusalem. And Bina was in a sensitive situation, personal status in the country at the time. But as we got back, we had called, or Bina had called the police and the fire department and the ambulances. And fortunately, we got there, and the police had told my wife, you go in and you see what's going on inside. We don't know her condition. Go and see what you can help. And fortunately, whatever she took, whatever drugs she took and medication she took to try to commit suicide hadn't worked completely yet. And my wife was able to wake her up, or to whatever it's called, I don't know the words. Revive her, and of course we took her right away to the nearest hospital where she was there. So, and fortunately, to to tell the end of the story, at least as far as this woman, and fortunately, she was able to get to recover. She got better. She had an only granddaughter that she never thought she would ever see, who was living in America. She fortunately got on a plane, which she never thought she would be able to do, and spent several more years in Chicago, in Highland Park, in fact, where I also lived. And but that was Bina's chesed. Started off just as a chesed visit to Leslie Korshak, if you know the name Korshak from Chicago. And fortunately, that thanks to Bina, who was a Kli of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to help us revive this woman who thought she had nothing to live for and get her back on her feet. Yishal Koach for at least one life.
Any other questions?
Dina, your names and your family, are you able to trace them back
Trace them back.
to Jewish roots?
No, they're just, the Hebrew itself isn't contained in the name, but what I did find out, the kind of Indians we are an emigration from Persia. So the history shows that there are a number of Indians like myself. We're called Sindhis, Sindhis. Some of the names are like Israni with Isra, or Natani with Natan, Matani, Matan, Sujanani with Shoshan. So we see that one of these days when I can breathe a little bit, I think I'd like to do a little bit more research on that. But I did actually see an Oxford graduate who had done a Pakistani Jew here, and he told me that there's strong evidence that the part of India where we're from, Sindh, that there was a Jewish presence there.
What are some of both of your recent inspirations to keep you going in Olam Hazeh as you've been living here in Eretz Yisrael, seeing what's going on with Am Yisrael as a whole? Do you have any recent revelations, or are they all the continual, original inspirations that you've inspired by?
For me, writing is what keeps me going. I love writing books, and actually davening has strengthened me. And if anyone would ask me what's transformed my life, I would have to say it's the Hebrew prayers.
I would say for myself, I feel a real expectancy that anything can happen in a moment. And in terms of purpose, that everything that I do, that I expect Hashem to breathe on it. That means that I have a lot of work to do on my own midot. So I feel that the inspiration is that we should see Mashiach in our day.
I was wondering about both your families, like if they get to Israel, if they're both still in Jamaica and in Chicago, and how often they get here. How do you feel about it?
My sister that lives in Beverly Hills, California, has been to visit me once, and that's the only family member that's come to visit. She loves Vagano.
So I got married 6 years ago. My mother and 2 sisters came, and I've been seeing my mom back and forth because she's ill right now, but they really were very impressed around our wedding time, and they attended events. And when I converted also, it was a big congratulations. They wholeheartedly accepted the whole situation, so they're very, very fine with what I'm up to over here.
I have one thing to add. You referred to the day when you were in Beit Din, and you were getting that wonderful stamp, right, today. Like they say for a bar mitzvah boy, today I'm a fountain pen, today I'm a Jew, And I'll never forget it. You were asked to leave the room, and Yoni and I were there in the Beit Din with the Dayanim, And I'll never forget, they looked at us.
You want me to finish? And they said, please bring us every week. Okay, outside they like the.
It's a tall order.
Yeah, go ahead and back.
I was wondering how long it took both of y'all to convert? How many years?
My process was, I did mine with the Jerusalem Best, and it was 2 years. Yeah.
Mine was a year and 3/4.
Yeah, I saw the poster advertising for this event had a picture that looked like a crossing of the Red Sea. The light at the end. I don't know who designed that, so I just wonder what is the significance of that, and how's that connected with the conversion?
Well, since I designed it, I thought that as the title, A Journey Toward the Land of Our Souls, the light at the end of the tunnel, you're crossing the Red Sea, going to, or not immediately to, but going to Israel. So I just thought that was the best poster, the best background. Use your imagination.
Dolores, you mentioned that you were a minister, an ordained minister. I don't know if you're aware that there is a group, it's called the Noahites. Have you heard of them?
Yes.
For those who haven't, it was started by several, I believe several ministers who, upon reading the Bible, felt that researching it more, delving into it more, felt that the Christian explanation or the view of the Bible was not correct, and they felt that the Jewish approach towards the Bible was more correct. And interestingly enough, the rabbis that they were connected with did not recommend them to convert to Judaism, but to start a movement called the Noahites, so that they suggested that they keep the Sheva Mitzvot B'nai Noach, the 7 commandments that the world, the humanity is expected to observe, rather than to convert to Judaism, which would add another 613 or 607 mitzvot that they wouldn't have to do. In other words, that maybe trying to put yourself into a status, because as you probably know, there's a big question on whether or not, by Jewish law, we're supposed to discourage people from becoming Jews. Among other reasons, I believe, is that keeping the 613 mitzvot is a very difficult thing, and as a Jew, we have a system of rewards and punishment, and it would be chaval to put in people that don't have to, and they could be righteous people, but also not Jews. I mean, that goes to your credit that you're willing to put yourself in that situation, that you're willing to accept this problematic status of punishment and reward, and that. But the Noahide is a very interesting, I don't know what the status, maybe you know what the status of this movement is today, if it petered out or if it's...
No, they're still here in Eretz Israel. My rabbi had me meet with them. I don't remember the name of the person that headed it up at that time. And I did meet with them. I sat there and listened to them for a couple of
It was
hours.
an Indiana Jones personality who set up the movement.
Right,
I
but
forgot his name, I think.
Wendell Jones.
Wendell Jones.
Wendell.
Wendell Jones.
V-E-N-D-Y-L.
And his whole family converted, and they suggested that he does not personally convert.
right.
So
I'm curious to know, since you both come from families who are not Jewish, I'm curious to know what your thoughts are about non-Jews. Do you see Jews as having the one and only objective truth? Do you see non-Jews as not being enlightened or not having the truth, or do you see it more as like, that's good for them and this was your personal choice?
My entire family are still practicing Christianity, and I love my family dearly, and they've totally accepted my conversion. And the most difficult day of the entire year for me is Xmas, when they celebrate, and it is painful for me. However, we respect each other, and that's their choice. And I'm grateful to Hashem for my family. But it's not easy knowing that your entire family practices that.
Do you talk about theology with them or religion?
No. You know what? The reason I have a relationship with my family is because we don't discuss religion. You don't want to get into a Cain and Abel situation. No, we love each other, and they understand. If they ask me questions, I answer questions, and I think that's all that's necessary.
So I feel I have a very good relationship with my family. We kind of respect each other, and we can actually have fun together and not, get bent out of shape about religious differences. I just know where I have to walk, and I walk softly and not make, waves the best I know how. I feel a little bit more disconnected from what they're doing. I know that Hashem looks out for righteous Gentiles also, and that Gentiles have a place in the program, they do. I do feel a little bit of a burden in the area because I feel my family have Hebrew roots, but then again, if it's to really be, then they'll also be guided. I came to understand from my own experience that you really don't have to know a whole lot to experience personal guidance. I mean, you could go outside and see a bird in the sky, and Hashem can use the bird to speak to you. So for me, before it was pictures, emotional responses, that I knew that something spoke to me. So Hashem knows only, but we try to keep the peace as much as we can.
It's directed to Ulla, nothing personal. They say you get nevuah when you name your child, like you get prophecy. Like my name means happiness, and for me it's a lot of pressure. Like sometimes I just want to be sad, but you've got the pressure. So do you believe you had nevuah, so to speak? Look, how did you get to the name Ahuva?
My name Ahuva was given to me by Rabbi David Rosen. He used to head up the Anti-Defamation League here, and Ruth Brody Sharon and I went and met with him. We were working on a project for 2 years, and she introduced me as Dolores Gray, and he looked at me and said, your name shouldn't be Dolores, it should be Ahuva. I had never heard it before. And I would tell Ruth, whenever we're in Isreel, call me Ahuva. And when I went to the mikvah, I kept the name Ahuva. Yeah. The name of a person does define the person. Ahuva with the H at the end means beloved of Hashem. Yeah.
One for Ahuva. How would you explain moving from being a pastor out of the 3-in-1 corporate idea of God into pure ethical monotheism of Judaism? And for Rebbetzin Bina, how you felt this attachment to the nation and Hebrew roots, but how did you also come to accept this nation's document, their Torah, because you experience other people's interpretation of God's love? What helped you get to that this interpretation was the one you were going to go for?
For me, this is how I made my transition. I was an ordained minister. I was not a pastor. And every year I would start studying my Bible January 1st, and by December 31st, I would be finished. The more I studied the Torah, the more discrepancies I found in Christianity, la havdil. And the last 5 years of my life, I knew I was going through a transition. I didn't know what the transition was, but I stopped going to church and stopped attending, practicing any of the Christian holidays. And my family it was very painful for my parents because I come from a very religious background, and they had not ever heard of any of us not going to church, but I knew I was going through a transition. And you know what, when you have a Jewish neshama, no matter how long it takes you to come into the reality that God is one, you'll come to that reality. The last church I attended in Los Angeles, Dr. Charles C. Queen, he believed that God was one. He had a Hebrew school. He taught the Hebrew teaching, the Torah teaching in Hebrew, and he taught Lahad, Christian teaching in the Greek Koine. And he was really my preparation. My Rebbetzin always said to me when I first told my Rebbetzin that story, she said that that man realized he was preparing you for Judaism. I said, I don't think that was his intent. He believed that God was one, and he taught the Torah in Hebrew and Lahad, the Christian teaching in Greek Koine. I learned more from him than anyone I learned anywhere in the world. And I find it hard to believe that Dr. Queen doesn't know the image, but he's 80-something years old, and why should he rock the boat? Yeah.
So I had a struggle, and this is why it took a while before I decided to convert, because I didn't know what to do with JC. I did not know what to do. But when I had that very strong epiphany, if you will, to convert, I went straight ahead, and the first 2 weeks of the conversion class, I was davening to Hashem. I said, what do I do with JC? Because I know I'm supposed to do this. And Hashem hears our prayers. I came to understand that I don't have to understand everything, and I just put it away. And the irony is that when I converted and I look back at Hinduism and Christianity, I have such an appreciation for what I learned. But concerning the issue of divinity, that was another bus ride event where I was on a bus, and it was like I broke. If he existed, he had to have been a man. It was very clear to me that he was not divinity.
However, I would just like everyone to know here that that 2-year period that you went through for conversion was not easy, because you seem to say that it just flowed over. But I know how many trials and tribulations, how many times you were rejected from the Beis Din. So you want to expand on that a little.
Peggy, that's my Rebbetzin sister, and it wasn't an easy period, you know, based on Megillus Ruth, when Naomi treated Ruth to go back to her people, and she said, your people should be my people, and your God should be my God, and where you dwell, and I will dwell, and there I will be buried. They turn you down your traditional 3 times. I did not go in the Beis Din and tell them that I was an ordained minister, but they closed my file, refused to reopen it, because here in Yerushalayim, they thoroughly investigate you, and they will know everything there is to know about you and more before your conversion is completed. And the way my conversion was completed is that I had been privileged to meet Rabbi Cohen and his wife up in Haifa. He's the chief rabbi of Haifa. He was the one that was instrumental in getting my file. He has an office in Barbigan, getting my file reopened and getting me the 4th interview, and that's when Rabbi Bakshi Dor conducted that interview, and that's when my conversion was completed. It was a process, and it was not easy. But Baruch Hashem, you have to have a Munah B'Takan Hashem. And I had the support of my community. Yes.
Number one, I just want to say I think you are both extremely incredible. And sometimes I ask myself if I were not born a Jew or not more religious, would I ever have gone to look for it? And I can't answer that question. So I just think you're incredible is not the word, but for the record. Question, both of you, I guess, at different points in your life. You know, when during that 4 months you had to go back, did you ever think of converting to America? And I want to Rebbetzin because I think you are Rebbetzin in my way. Also, was that a point where you felt like I'll just do it in America? It'll be easy there, like versus the whole culture here. Forget it, I'll just like be more comfortable where I'm living, and also did you ever think of that?
I didn't ever think of converting in America, but I just knew I wanted to live in Israel. And then after coming here and experiencing the high holidays, that's when I knew I was converting. And after that earthquake, I just packed up everything. It's a Laklaha story. It's mamash, I left everyone and everything behind to fulfill the vision that had been in my neshama for all those years.
But when things were getting difficult, let's say converting in Israel, did you think that maybe I should do it in America would be easier? Like, did you ever
I didn't necessarily think it would be easier in America. It could have been, but my purpose was to be here. My purpose was to be here in the Holy Land. I didn't ever think about doing it in America.
So for me, I actually did, but I had a situation where I held a green card. You know what that is, right? I lived in the US for 20 years. I was very naive. I did not know that you had to travel within a year to keep your green card status. And so I actually lost my status. And in a last-ditch effort, I tried, when I went back to Jamaica as an option, to get a visa, a US visa. And they turned me down because they said I was all over the place. Because if you saw my passport, went to Turkey, went to Cyprus, went to Budapest, UK, just to stay valid with my visa. It looked very unstable. So they told me, when you settle, then, we'll talk. Of course, now I have an extended visa, so, yeah.
I have a personal question. I'm on Shidduchim now, again, and I'd like to actually meet a convert. If you have any way that I could find a shidduch to a convert, I'd be willing to do that.
What number?
To marry a convert. I see that Rabbi Poston is very fulfilled.
Any last questions? So I want to thank everybody for coming once again, especially Ahuva and Bina for taking the time and sharing